Welcome to Stanwick Lakes. In this video, we'll be looking at how to fish snags. Yes! The first thing we need to talk about when we're fishing around snags is the tackle itself. It's vital that you're using tackle that is strong enough and robust enough to be able to extract a carp away from its snaggy safe haven and into a position where you're able to land a fish safely. So the first bit of kit I'd like to talk about is our line choice. Here I'm using a mono line. This is the Exocet Transcarkey in 23-pound breaking strain. It may seem excessive using a 23-pound line, but we are fishing close to these snaggy trees behind us, and I want a line that's going to be able to get them away from there safely into open water and into the net. Now, I've already mentioned that today I'm fishing with a monofilament main line, and this would be my preferred choice if I was fishing at very close range. Today I'm fishing 3 to 4 wraps max, or if the snags weren't that severe. Although we do have these trees and the pads behind me, the trees that I'm fishing towards, although they come down to the surface, there's a little bit of kind of free space behind that until the snag really starts. So, and I'm actually fishing a few feet short of the actual branches themselves. So yeah, there's a bit of clear ground there before the thicker the snag starts. Now, because mono does have stretch, I'm quite happy to play fish in these situations on a monofilament line. If, however, I was fishing further out where the stretch in the line could mean that the fish would reach underneath those branches to where they're really thick and dense, then I would be using a braid. By using a braid, you have absolutely no stretch at all. There's no elasticity in it, nothing like that, that can result in the fish reaching the safety of the snag. But as we are today, I'm absolutely fine with fishing a mono in these situations. The next bit of kit I'd like to talk about is the rods. Here I'm using the Explorer TI rods in the 3.5 pound test curve. They have a nice soft tip which will cushion any lunges, but they have a lot of power down below, which means I'm able to take control of the situation and steer the carp away from any snags. We all like playing carp on nice floppy bendy rods. It's great catching them on the surface with a nice through action rod or on a float down the edge, but those aren't going to be ideal for fishing around the snags. They simply don't have the power or the backbone to deal with these snaggy situations. Next bit of kit is our bite alarm choice and our bite indication. It really is so important to know about a bite as soon as possible. So in this instance, I'm using the RX Plus alarms with the sensitivity cranked up to the max. As soon as that fish moves that hook bait, moves that lead, I want to know about it. The quicker you're able to get to the rod and deal with it, the better the chance you've got of getting the fish away from the snag and landing it safely. Make sure you stick around to the end of this video because you could be in with the chance of winning some fantastic prizes. So one thing we haven't talked about so far is what exactly do we mean when we use the term snag fishing? What is a snag? Well, a snag is any sort of obstacle or structure in the water. It could be the lilies that we've got in front of us. It could be the overhanging trees there as the branches go under the water. There could be bridge supports over a river or stagings or pontoons, things like that. Or there could be objects that are under the water that you can't see, like a big pile of rocks and boulders or a sunken tree or whatever. They come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. And the reason that the fish like these areas so much is the safety that they provide the carp. They have all this structure around them, providing them with a nice sanctuary area. And lots of these structures also tend to harbour lots of natural food items. So not only do the carp feel safe there, but they have a natural food larder close by, and that's the reason that the carp spend so much time in the snags and can often be very reluctant to leave these areas. But they are a hazardous area for us to be fishing. So it is so important to be using the correct tackle and the correct techniques to fish these areas safely. I didn't get down until late this afternoon for this session, but the rods are in the water, the traps are set. I've got one rod and a little bit of a hollow in these overhanging branches here, another rod right on the edge of a very dense lily bed. There's been a few fish in the area. I had a few little liners, so the fish are moving around, and hopefully it's not too long before we can put a carp on the bank. Well, good morning. It's not really happening in this corner, if I'm honest, but I've been up early this morning watching the water, and as the sun's rising behind us, I've seen quite a lot of fish on the opposite bank. That's what's getting a lot of the sun. There's been quite a few fish taking advantage of that extra warmth over there. They've been moving in and around the pads on that far side. I'm still quite in the shade here, so I think a lot of fish ventured out last night and they haven't really returned. There's loads of fish on the top. If we were doing a floater fishing video today, we'd be bagging up. But no, we're going to catch a carp from a snaggy area, and I think our best chances of doing that is by moving over to that far side. So I'm going to get the rods reeled in now, load up the barra and head over there. Ciao, ciao. Well, here I am on the opposite bank, and you can see we've got these really thick, dense lily pads here. There's quite a few dotted along this bank actually. There are a lot of fish on the top, but there's also a lot of fish moving in and around these pads. You can see the pads knocking there. So I'm going to focus my attentions on these fish here. What I'm going to do first is put a little bit of bait on a few spots. Hopefully we can get a few fish feeding, give me a better idea of where exactly to place the rig. Either way, wherever we end up fishing, it's going to be proper hit and hold stuff if we do hook one. So yeah, let's just hope we get to that stage. I think we can get 2 rods in here. So I've talked about the hardware that I'm using. Now I just want to show you the business end. So here I have a 3-foot leader of 30-pound submerge. This is a lead-free material that sinks like a brick. The reason I've incorporated this short length of leader here is just to act as a bit of reinforcement against any sharp or abrasive objects that may be down there. I mentioned before that I'm using the 23-pound Exocet mainline, which has superb abrasion resistant qualities. This is to add just a little bit more security. Coming down from that, I have a slick lead clip. It's important that the lead is discharged in these situations. The last thing you want when you're fishing in and around snags is to have something get caught up that's going to cost you the fish. A large lead, obviously if that isn't discharged, it could potentially get caught up on a branch or the lilies and make it much more difficult to land the fish safely. The lead itself is a 4-ounce flat pear lead. I think the flat pear shape offers a lot more resistance, aids with the hooking, and also the tail rubber is just lightly pushed on the lead clip there. I really do want that lead to be able to hook the fish and then discharge. If you come down here, I'm using 25-pound Camatech Soft as the hook link material. If these snags were more severe, then I would think nothing about using it in the 35-pound version. Or if I'm fishing venues where there's sharp objects down there, such as zebra mussels or really sharp stones, then I also like to use the 50-pound armadillo. That's actually a snag shock leader material, but I find it doubles up really well as a hook link in really extreme situations. If you come down to the sharp end here, I have a size 4 wide gape X hook, the X meaning extra strong, also extra sharp, and I've just created a simple blowback rig just with a rig ring tied level with the barb there. The hook bait is a yellow Northern Special wafter. Over the eye of the hook there, I've just got a liner sleeve to help the hook turn and flip, and again to ensure we end up with more carp on the bank. So as you can see, it's a really simple setup. There's not many components there, there's very little to go wrong, just simple, strong, reliable end tackle. So I've just got the second rod in place, just in a little bit of a gap in the pads here, in amongst all these tree branches. And what I'm going to talk about now is rod security. So because we are fishing with the clutch fully locked up, no line at all can come off there. So if we get a take, that fish is going to want to reach safety either in amongst these tree branches or in the pads. And because no line is going to come off the clutch, if we don't have the rod securely fastened, then the rod's going to go in. So what we've done here, I've got the butt ring of the rod behind the bite alarm. So if the rod is pulled forward, then the alarm stops it from flying in the lake. Also at the back here, I'm using these rod locks. These are a rubber butt grip that locks the rod in place, just as the name suggests. It's really hard for that rod to move forward at all. They really do grip very tightly indeed. Also, we have snag ears on the bite alarm. Now, although I'm pointing the rod pretty much where we're fishing, if the fish decides to go right or left, then these snag ears prevent the rod from being pulled off the buzzer. Bank sticks I'm actually using quite long bank sticks here. These are actually 24-inch bank sticks, or 2-foot bank sticks, and I've pushed them in as far as I can. The ground here is actually quite firm anyway, but by using the longer bank sticks, it just means there's no chance of that bank stick moving in the ground. If the ground was really soft, then I'd be using something like a storm pole and getting it in as far as I can go, or using the bank stick stabilizers to ensure that that bank stick can't move at all in the soft ground. But here we've got nice firm ground. I'm using long bank sticks that I've pushed in as far as I can go. I've actually just raised them up a little bit as well. Now, I mentioned earlier that I'm pointing the rods directly at the rig. Reason being, if I was fishing, for example, down to my left and had the line going at right angles, then the rod obviously can bend, and just the bend of that rod could see the fish reach safety of the snag. Now, although I am pointing the rod at the rig, that's not to say the fish can't go left or right, but that's why we have the snag ears, to prevent the rod from being dragged off the alarm. But because I'm pointing directly, I'd still want a little bit of a shock absorber there, so I've just raised the tips of the rod ever so slightly, so just the bend of the tip acts as a little bit of a cushion. That can prevent any hook pulls. If I was just to point the rod directly at the rig, then hook pulls could occur because there's just not enough stretch, not enough give. But by having the tip raised, just the tip bending over, it should be enough to act as a bit of a cushion so we don't get any hook pulls, but not too much so that it reaches the safety of the snag. So I guess that's it. The traps are all set. We just need to put everything into practice and put a carp on the bank. Well, it wasn't really working for me in that spot there. There was fish in front of me, but they seemed to be right in the very thick of the pads. Not really anywhere where I was able to present a rig safely. So I've just moved the next swim along. There are sets of pads all the way along this bank really. But yeah, I've just come one more swim up. I did put a little bit of bait in between these two sets of pads here in front of me. I've not seen these signs of feeding fish, but the lake bed is quite hard there and the water is already quite coloured, so it's not like you can actually see the fish that you're fishing for. But the pads have been twitching while I've been stood here, so I know there's fish in the area. So let's get a rig in place. So I've already pre-baited this little spot that I'm fishing already in between these two sets of pads. I've just put in a couple of handfuls of pellet now and a handful of corn. I've just got a handful here of Pacific tuna boilies, which I'm just going to break open just to let the flavours and attractors flood out. And I'm just going to sort of scatter them in between these two sets of pads. What I don't want to be doing is baiting right on the edge of the pads to sort of keep the fish feeding there. I want the fish to come out of the pads in search of food. So I'm scattering them in between these two big sets here. Kind of get the fish into a safer position to be able to land them easier and safer. It's competition time and you could win the rod security setup that I've used on this session. So you could win a pair of rod locks, a pair of snag ears, and also a set of the Black Label Slim bank sticks. And all you have to do to stand a chance of winning that great prize is simply like this video, subscribe to the Foxinternational YouTube channel, and answer this very simple question. Which rods have I been using on this session? Put your answer in the comments section below and we will pick a winner purely at random from all the correct answers. So get liking, get subscribing, put your answer in the comments below and good luck. Yes! Well, I hope this video has helped give you confidence to fish those snaggy situations, as well as showing you the do's and don'ts to help you extract carp from their snaggy lair. Right, I'm going to slip this fish back and I'll catch her again next time. He wasn't hanging about, was he?